Okay, welcome back. Joining me now, very good friend, very special guest, Sam Unger, Director of Strategy from 2010. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about, in this segment, about the 2010 competition season, which was, a special one, a tough one. It definitely had its ups and downs. So let's start with New York City. So I thought it would be really cool to take a look at our first practice. Have you watched this one already, Sam, in your review?
No, I didn't watch practice matches.
Okay, so this is super pixelated.
This will be a surprise.
Yeah. So this is us for our very first practice match. Can you hear me okay while the video playing? We come out and we score both balls in a row. And if you look in the background, you can see me, and there's Carrillo, and there's Ariel. And you're one.
That was pretty sick.
Funny.
We snuck in the judges' chairs. But that was crazy. I'm going to turn down the volume because someone uses a bad word from the stands. It was Profeta, and he was asking the FTA not so nicely to get out of the way. But this was crazy. We come out and we're just like hitting shots, and like everything's going in. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if only it was that consistent throughout the rest of the competition.
Yeah. It's like this was like really bizarre because usually you come out practice match, you play well, and it's just like your season's money. Like this is usually the worst you are.
Yeah, especially how it had been my first 2 years too, where practice day is spent trying to fix so many different things to come out working.
Right.
And then end up breaking later.
Also in this, I think you can see we have like a bumper skirt, which was a really bad idea and we should never do again because it would get caught in the roller. So we cross the bump and then everything.
Yeah, it doesn't look well fastened.
Yeah, we cross the bump, everything goes wrong, and we don't really do anything for the rest of the match. But that was it was a good start. It was like, I remember after this match feeling super confident. And then do you want to talk about so we go into, we come out of practice, they were pretty good. We fix up this issue with the climber. How did you feel going into quals, if you recall?
Yeah, I do remember feeling confident. I think I didn't really know what to expect, this being our first competition.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we always feel pretty good going into New York. And just that, I don't know, it always comes down to consistency. And so coming out feeling good, I think it kind of led me to think that we are always as good as our potential, which is not always the case.
Yeah, you always think that, well, as good as we can get, we will get there for sure. Mm-hmm. No way we will come short of that.
No way.
I remember going through quals. It was just like, we were okay. New York City definitely, back then, still now, but really back then it was weak and there weren't a lot of strong teams. And it generally there was some powerhouse team from out of town and would, definitely be on the first alliance, oftentimes win. So it's just like, as far as I can remember, that was happening. And then usually it would be like 375 was with them or something like that. 375 was in the mix. And then the team this year was Miss Daisy, and they came in, and they weren't the best robot there. They didn't climb, but they shot from the far end, and they were just like, they played well, they drove smart. It was great. And I remember thinking that they were going to pick 375, and just being like, again, 694, odd man out, as usual. But then they said they were going to pick us, which was, after quals, we were like, okay, I think we were somewhere in the top 8, but pretty low. I remember Jared coming up to me and you and being like, if we pick you, you guys will say yes? And we're like,
duh.
Yeah, great, terrific. I was in disbelief, like, we're not the odd man out? Okay, great. And then So we go into picking, and do you want to talk a little bit about the picking, the whole experience there? Because there were some interesting things that happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, first, even what you're saying about them picking us, I remember there being so much emphasis we made so much emphasis when we were making our lists on not looking at rankings, but we never expected other teams to always take that into account, so to be picked by the number one alliance when we weren't like the number 2 team already kind of felt like that was a good sign that they might have similar ideas as us. I don't think that turned out to be completely the case when we were talking to them about who our second pick, our third team should be. They weren't as open to hearing our opinions as I'd kind of expected from a team of their caliber. I think we ended up picking a team that might not have even been on our pick list at all.
And it was interesting. I felt like it was similar to what happened at Connecticut the previous year, where 121 picked us, and they were really great. And they ended up going to Einstein later that year, and then they just made like a bizarre pick and didn't really take our input. Although, I talked about it in the last episode when we were talking about 2009, how you were like 100% right. You're like, we cannot pick 173. We need to pick 237. And like, I wish I would have, I don't know. I don't think it would have made much of a difference, but I wish I would have pushed harder.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be in that situation where, I mean, especially, I guess more so in 2009, like you're talking about, where we also felt like we were the best team there, but because we weren't the captain, to still not have that, like our voices valued in the same way. In this case, 341 was definitely the best team there. So it was a little harder to feel snubbed in that way, but it was still just, not the best way to start a partnership, I feel like, to kind of not just hear all the sides. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we've picked teams that have felt the same way about us.
Sure. I'm sure it's happened. We do try to listen to our partners. I think we have that conversation.
I think that's something that's also come from being on this side of it, though. I'm not sure we were always so open.
Right. That makes sense. But also like shows you the value of being a captain, being able to control the situation, having a bad pick, because I think we always have very good pick lists. Like maybe it's not perfect. Maybe we don't pick 100% the right team, but I don't think we're going to end up picking like 100% the wrong team either. And 3204, great team. They're actually much better than this was their rookie year, and their robot could barely move. And I remember after the picking, you were like, I don't know what this pick is. They weren't then you wouldn't listen to me. I went to Jared, who was their coach at the time, is now a 254 mentor, who by the way is like crazy good mentor, and I think the reason 254 became the best team in first is because they got his software help. But I'll put that aside. He was like, this team's awesome. They're great. You just watch. And they come out the first match and they like do nothing. And then they come out the second match and they don't really move. And so we end up using the backup coupon. I remember joking with Joe about like, just put your hand in there, rip out their wires. It's not viciously professional, but I wasn't serious. But I do have a vivid memory of that. Yeah, is there anything else you want to add about this whole picking situation?
Yeah, I just remember being up on the field with the girl from 341, and also just feeling like she wasn't the person who had watched all the matches, but she was their representative up there. And so I don't think that they were like,
right?
Yeah, and I don't think that they were like her top choice, but that she didn't have any kind of context for herself when the top ones that we did want were off the board. And so she was just kind of blindly going off of what they were saying, as opposed to, I don't know, she didn't really have her own views of it, and so I think it kind of led us astray too.
Yeah. And, you know, I think you did. How do you feel? Do you feel like you were trying to push on the field and you were being ignored, or did you feel like you pushed once and then just like whatever?
I definitely did try and push her on the field, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate to keep going, especially because at that point you're kind of on the spot already.
Mm-hmm.
And I was basically telling her to go against what her people were telling her, which was not really fair. So.
Because I was talking about 2009 last year, and I felt like, you know, I made my case for 237, but then I kind of just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I was
yeah, I just think because it's not like they had a bunch of teams that they were thinking about for the third pick or the third team, and I don't think that this was like their top. So once it got to that point, it felt like it was more up in the air, and so I felt like there could have been some sway, but didn't turn out.
Yeah. But I always felt like a little bit of regret that I didn't push harder. Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but you know, we do nowadays we do. If we're on the number one alliance, or we know we're going to pick by the number one alliance, or we know who our first pick is going to be, whether we're one or two. Usually it won't happen for three. We'll just send out a warm body to just say yes or no, and we do the whiteboard in the stands so that we can have the conversation amongst the team, but also with the team that we're going to partner with. And we also do, but when we do send out someone and we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know where we're going to get picked, I always just will be like, look, you have great opinions, you've watched the matches, make sure no matter what, your voice is heard in there, and they like know what your thoughts are, because it can be like, even if they don't listen to you, you want to know that you made your best fight for what you think is the right choice. And if it's close, you know, if they want a team and they're second on your list, you know, whatever, that's fine, right? But if it's just a total out of left field team that you know is not good because you've watched a ton of matches, you got to be like, this team is not good. This team is not good. This robot is not good. Not the right choice for us. Just hear me out. Here's why I think this, and kind of go through it. But it can be really tough to not be a captain for that reason. Okay, so we go through New York City. Quarterfinals. After quarterfinals, we bring in 2265 as the backup team, and they're actually really good. But our original plan was to have 341 back, 694 in the middle, and 3204 in the front, just putting in balls into the goals, whatever's in the area. But once we picked 2265, they're really more of a defensive team. And you mentioned this when I talked to you yesterday. We had like a switch, right? So like, what was the switch? Do you recall?
Not really.
I think it was after auto, 2265 and 341 would kind of both cross the field.
Yeah.
Which was actually like really hairy, and I was constantly worried about the spacing of it, that the teams would just try to block it up when all three of us were in the middle of the field. But we kind of, I don't know, it wasn't really a problem. We go through semis, and then semis and finals are all 3 matches. We go against 375, who's like our arch nemesis at this time, in finals, and this is finals match 3 that we're watching. Any memories of this that you want to reminisce about?
I don't remember any conscious thoughts as much as just really anxious feelings.
Yeah, for sure. I remember being really anxious. You know, if you watch these matches, you can see 341 making that switch now. I think we were blocking off 375 there, so 341 could make that switch. You see what we do here?
Set a pick.
Yeah, that was good. By the end, we were just basically like Auton and Klein, and that was it was really unfortunate because I felt like the robot was capable. Like, yeah, it wasn't the best robot in the world. It didn't have great ball control, but it was definitely capable of more. And you saw it in the practice match that we watched. Like, it was capable of scoring. It had working CV, but you know, it just felt like Auton would end, and then it was just a countdown until Klein.
Yeah, I feel like especially this also, I think, is virtue of this competition specifically. Like New York early on, it just feels like, if hanging and Auton is all that you need, it's like that's all you have to do. Like it didn't feel as necessary to do the in-between parts, which I don't think is like, I mean, we could have done more. We should have done more.
Like you can win a regional with that, but you will not progress
Right.
far. And I think oftentimes teams will rush ahead of you. There's that quote. It's like, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to, like, there's like 30 seconds left in this match and we're already climbing. Like, there's no need. Like, there's actually more than 30 here. I think we released the thing before. Here, though. I think we released the thing. It must be like
30 seconds remaining on the clock.
Yeah, that was 30 seconds left in the match.
Yeah.
That's 20, sorry. So it's, and it takes us.
You know what that means,
I can't hear you.
So that sound was 20 seconds left in the match. And it takes us, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds to hang. It's just,
Right.
we're leaving so much on the table. And this is, we went to 3 matches in semis. We went to 3 matches in finals. It's not like we were blowing teams out. It's just like, oh, play it safe, get the climb.
Right.
It's like, we're leaving points on the board. We were capable of scoring a lot more. And I remember being really excited, really happy we won the New York City Regional, right, for the first time in my time on the team in any capacity. First time since 2003.
03.
Yeah. But I remember just being frustrated, like feeling like we were capable of more and we weren't squeezing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any more thoughts on New York City before we move on to Connecticut?
No.
It was really awesome. It was really awesome.
No, I mean, that was a huge moment. Like you said, the first time we'd run a regional in 8 years, and obviously we're winning with a little more frequency now, but at the time, I guess in every regional that I'd been to previously, so 2 years before that, I think every single one we lost in the semis, and it kind of felt like that was like our ceiling right then, because even, the year before with like the robot that we thought was the best robot, like, in the world at the time.
Yeah, we'd
still just get stuck at the semis. But I also remember feeling a little bit like, even though we did finally get past that we didn't deserve it as much then as we would have the year before. Like so much of 09 just stuck with me. Like it just hurt so much.
Right.
This was like kind of redemption, but I didn't feel like we were as good.
Yeah, the competition wasn't as strong, so it was a lot easier to win.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't feel as rewarding, but it was good. It felt good.
Oh no, it was still amazing, but.
Okay, so moving on from New York City, going to Connecticut. So Connecticut was, I mentioned in the 2009 episode, one of the strongest events in the country. We had lots of great teams that year. Just off the top of my head, 177, 175. Who are still great. Were some other ones that were really good. 1124 was awesome that year. 1501 he came in. 230. It was just like a hodgepodge of like the best teams in the Northeast would come. And I felt pretty good about our chances. And I remember just like, I don't know if it was a week before or whatever. Seth got into some trouble at the school, and he got suspended from the team. And he wasn't allowed to come to Connecticut, and he was our driver and kind of like he was our engineering captain, really just our team captain. I remember getting a call from Joe. I was in Stony, and he told me the story, and I didn't even believe him. Or it might have been Seth messaged me on AIM, and I was just
it does feel like it would have been a kind of joke that Joe would play on you, but no, it was real.
Yeah. Do you have any things from that period that you wanted to share, reflect on?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that pretty well because I remember Betsy and I tried to make a petition from the team to get him back, and like had a conversation with Titel, who was the principal at the time, about how it was punishing us more than it was punishing him, and it wasn't fair. And they did not agree.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were really prepared to, we didn't have any kind of backup driver really. I know now that, you have kind of focused on having, seeing a lot of people driving and practice driving, and that was not the case then. Especially, we were just kind of trying to get past the point where if you were president, you were on the drive team. Like, we weren't as focused on driving as a whole then, so we didn't really have like a backup pool or.
Yeah, and also it's just it's always hard to bring in a backup driver, even if your backup driver is very well trained, has done an off-season event or two. It's really a difficult thing to do in the middle of a season, especially if you're not accustomed to the robot, which will happen oftentimes. You're not going to get a lot of practice with that robot, and we didn't have a practice bot or anything to work with to train on, and we had like a week. But I think beyond that, I think it was really difficult because Seth was our engineering captain, and we had I don't remember if Johnny or Adam was vice president. I think Johnny was, but it was really like top heavy, our leadership. Like, Seth knew that robot and really no one else did. Betsy, was a great engineer, but she had gone over to marketing, so she didn't know a lot about the robot, or as much as she would have the year before if she was like, you know what I'm saying, if she was like co-president or whatever. And it just felt like we were like, Seth knew the robot and no one else really did, which definitely isn't the case anymore. I feel like on the team there are lots of people who know the robot. And if something like that happens, you don't want to be in a position where one person being removed or quitting the team or whatever just like totally destroys your team. Then you don't really have a team.
Yeah, I think especially because he had been president the year before too, so just being 2 years in a row, he just kind of had control over such a large portion of the team and the robot and the design process too, and everything that, it wasn't well spread at that point.
Yeah. Seth did show up with his dad just to because it's open to the public. And I remember the robot would break and Seth wasn't allowed to touch anything, but he would go to the pits and point to stuff and be like, well, what's happening there?
I don't know if we, who would have really enforced that.
I mean, Cologne would not let him touch the robot, but.
No, I know. But who would have told Titel?
Yeah, you can't really fault Cologne for that, I don't think.
No.
But as much as I love faulting Cologne, I don't blame him at all for any of that stuff. But it was definitely tough, and I think it was really difficult for Adam Rudy, who was Sammy's younger brother, who was the operator that year. He slid up to driver, and there was just a ton of pressure put on him. And it's just every mistake, it didn't feel, I don't think we, from a mentor like me and Joe, didn't do a great job of being super supportive, being that's all right, whatever. Just setting him up for success, or setting him up where even if it's failure, it's okay, we should have. Because ultimately we'd already qualified for champs. It wasn't not that big of a deal. It should have been a great experience for him, and I don't think it really was.
I think it also just kind of affected us so much mentally, and in a way that then moves to him, where it's he's very aware that this is not what we want to be happening, Right. And so it's not really a great position. Like you're saying, he doesn't have all of our support behind him. He doesn't feel I don't know, that would just be a really hard position to be in. And those are really hard shoes to step into, just knowing Seth.
Right. And I think that he really needed all of our support. And, I think we were trying to, but we definitely could have and should have done a better job for him. But, okay, moving on. So we're going through quals. I think, he definitely wasn't perfect, but we did an okay job. We were flirting with the top 8 the whole competition. I just have like a distinct recollection of our final quals match because we had this big debate on the team about what should we do, whether we should go all offense or have a defender. And I remember you and I specifically disagreed because I felt we should go all offense because it was our only shot at the top 8. We felt we should have a defender because we couldn't risk the loss. And, you know, it's just tough because it was like the first time that we had a disagreement, I think, onto like how to act in a match.
I don't know. That's not, so I don't remember this specific thing, but I remember just kind of the tension, not just at this point, but between me and you over this year of me kind of stepping into your role from the year before, but you were still there all the time. And so kind of where that line would be about what is now up to me and what you can still kind of have your hand in. I think just going, like graduating and becoming a mentor and having to kind of change roles is hard. And it's also hard for the person who's then trying to do that role. I think it was kind of just sticky.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I definitely didn't do a great job, especially at first, mentoring. And it's something I still struggle with because I kind of just went straight from student to mentor to teacher. And it's just like, I came back to mentor because I liked robots. Like I didn't come back to mentor because I had a particular passion at that point for teaching anybody or passing down knowledge. I just wanted to play this game and have fun with it. And then all of a sudden I was supposed to be like adult and responsible and be like back away from situations and handle things maturely. And I did not do that. And it was definitely tough. And you know, the reason I wanted us to talk about this is because it was definitely a tough situation. We were good friends then. We're still good friends now. But it like definitely drove a wedge between us because I didn't know how to handle that situation. And I think there's, you know, young mentors struggle with that. You know, where is that line of I'm a mentor now, how do I handle these situations? I think strategy is a particularly tough one because, you know, with the robot, you'd be like, okay, I'm not going to put my hand on the robot. But strategy, it's all mental.
Right. You can still do the exact same thing. There's no restrictions. Like you're at the competition, you can do the same thing whether you're a student or not. Like,
right. How do I do I limit my advice? Do I not do my opinion? It's something, you know, I definitely still struggle with today. I think it's something that I learned from, and I ultimately I make my point. If the students disagree with me, maybe if I feel really strongly, I'll make my point a second time, but ultimately they decide. And just, you know, that match specifically, I remember I felt I was right and that you weren't, and that we needed to do it. And I pushed really hard. And if I could do that again, I would have just been like, we'll do what I think is wrong. And it's not going to be the end of the world. And kind of just like learning from that and knowing to just let those things go, like give your opinion and then move on. That's, I think, how you can strategy mentor best. But it's definitely a difficult thing to navigate. I think strategy particularly is really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, especially because it just kind of feels arbitrary that you're like, we were still only 2 grades apart, but like 1 year apart. And so it's like, we're still like peers, but then you're supposed to be in this different role. And it's just, it's hard to navigate that.
But we made it to the top 8.
We did.
And you picked the Great Alliance.
Thank you.
175, everyone was like, great pick. Everyone agreed. They were awesome. They were a perfect team for us. And then you picked 178, who not everyone on the team felt was a great pick because they were ranked low or whatever. I spoke to you about this yesterday. I can't remember if I was supportive or not supportive of that pick, but I do remember looking back on it and being like, that was a terrific pick. They were awesome in quals. Unfortunately, those matches aren't online anymore for us to review and prove that. But I remember they came out the first match and they barely moved. It's just like, you like stake your reputation on this team, and then of course they barely move in the first match. And then we pulled them for backup.
Yeah, I definitely remember that, and I remember that feeling because I think at that point, this was also kind of when we were changing kind of our scouting too, and just having, I mean, not like more people involved, because we always had everyone scouting matches, but this was like my first time, I think, kind of where I was just watching all the matches as a whole, like global scouting, you know, and this was kind of new. And so I felt like really confident about the fact that from what I had seen from them from 178. And I knew that I had seen more of them than everyone else, because I was the only person doing that at the time. And so I remember being really frustrated at people not listening to me about that, but ultimately it was my decision, and then it didn't pan out. And so that was just, I mean, I remember people telling me, like, after I picked them, like, oh, what are we gonna do? We're with this, like, we're gonna lose. And I'm like, no, like, I promise you they're good. And did not get vindicated.
Never trust you.
Yeah, did not get vindicated in the way I'd hoped. But
I think, you know, that was a really tough time to be a global scout, because, you know, you did it in 2009, and you were right about that pick, but a lot of people didn't really know. And then I knew, because I would watch the matches afterwards just to see, like, are we doing the right process? And the same thing with 178. Like, maybe they didn't work out in the limbs, and we definitely panicked early, but they didn't work out in the first match because they broke down at some point. But I watched those matches, and I think your process was 100% right, and we picked the right team. Because everyone wasn't on board, it just, like, set everything up for failure. Nowadays, global scouts get a lot more respect, and it's like the global scouts think this.
Well, yeah, the fact that we have a name for it and that there's more than one, like.
Yeah. But I think, like, you definitely paved the way for future people to be trusted in these scenarios. I remember watching just old videos and hearing people's comments from the stands. It's just clear to me they don't understand the strategy, they don't understand the rules, and that's less the case nowadays. You watch our matches from this past year at Palmetto, and you hear the comments coming from the stands. Like, yeah, there's still some stuff that makes you cringe, like they don't understand a thing. But for the most part, they understand the game. They understand the decisions being made on the field, and the picks. Like, they trust the picks, even if it's like we picked the bottom team in the standings, and everyone's like, yeah, we know what we're doing. It's okay.
I think that also comes from, I don't remember when we started reading the entire manual at kickoff.
Definitely not 2010.
No, definitely not 2010. But I think that even just kind of starting from that point, starting a whole season from that point, and obviously you're not going to remember every detail after that first read through, and that can be kind of hard to listen to or comprehend at that point. But just kind of starting with that foundation, I think, and just understanding the importance of everyone knowing what's happening, I think is, like, really important, and was not really all around us amongst the whole team at this point.
Yeah, and I talked about in a previous segment, Flynn had that idea for 469's robot.
I remember that.
Banger bombs. That was great. And he, and also we didn't really understand the ranking system very well. There were just always lots of little things that we didn't get about the rules, and we really got away with it in 2009, but not 2010. And after that, I personally started reading the manual more closely. I think you did as well. And then it just spread throughout the team. I think Chris was the first one to insist that the whole team reads the manual. And that was, I think, made a big difference. It might have been Peter Jasko, I'm not sure. But that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Or because more people understood the game. Okay.
It's funny, I do remember Flynn having that idea. And at that point too, we were like, they always come out with these amendments to the rules to, like, get away with these avoid these, like, loopholes. And so we just were like, it's a loophole, it's not. We should have listened a little more.
Yeah. And you should, we should be engaged in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. So we lost in quarters, but I do still to this day think that was one of the best alliances we ever built, and it had the potential to win that regional. It is what it is.
It's hard to do that from the 5 spot too and feel good about it, but
Yeah. I did write a note for myself that I recall us just climbing earlier and earlier in matches and just being really frustrated. This is something that's going to come up the next episode when I talk about 2011. But you were the director of strategy in 2011, so I figured we'd talk about it. I just remember just getting more and more frustrated not being on the drive team and being like, what are these decisions we're making? What are we doing here? We're just leaving so many points on the table. We're giving up on stuff. And then you really encouraged me to talk to Joe about becoming drive coach in 2011. And then we did that, and that was great. Thank you for encouraging me to do that.
you're welcome. I do remember that too.
Because I starting with 2010, I was very frustrated with some of the things we were doing on the field, where it's like we were just leaving so many points on the field.
Yeah. So that was at Champs. That was your first time, right? 2011.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Connecticut before we move on to the championship? I think Connecticut. We won chairmans.
Look at Joe.
You mean me?
You, yes. I'm saying Joe to the population.
Yeah. So much skinnier. We won chairmans for the first time in my history on the team. That was really amazing. Here's
we'd gotten a lot of. I think that was one of my first Facebook profile pictures. I think it's still on there. Oh, and got the shirt. But yeah, we'd had engineering inspiration a couple times. But this was the first time that we crossed over that.
We won chairmans in 2005, but I mean
in my time, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. These pictures.
Yeah. Young Dan.
Oh, there's me and Ariel again.
Yeah. These are great.
I think we were singing 500 Miles. It was like when that episode of How I Met Your Mother came out.
Oh, that was a great episode. Okay, let's hop over to Champs. So we go into Champs. Seth is reinstated on the team. He gets to drive again, and it feels like we're back in business. I remember going and being like, we're back in business. Things are gonna pick up where they left off. But it really did. That whole situation with Connecticut, it almost felt like we were restarting. Which kind of sucked because we had it halted our momentum, and we could have spent Connecticut improving and working things out, but we were just kind of like maintaining.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we had said that was the first time that we'd won a regional, and I can't look at these pictures of myself. It's so funny. That was the first time that I'd been around for winning a regional or even getting past the semis. Connecticut was the first time that we didn't get to the semis. So it was, like you said, a lot of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm. So we go into Champs and we struggled mightily. I mentioned in an earlier segment, our drivetrain just started breaking down. It felt like we were breaking every other match. And it just stunk because this was the second time that we were going to Champs in 4 years. And it felt like, again, we were just breaking. Like we were just not ready. We were like those teams that show up in New York and it's just like they break every match. They might have a good design, but they break every match. And we were just on the next level. And I don't know. I'm like, I remember thinking like, what can we do? Why can't we put this together? Why do we break down at the highest level? So Champs was definitely really tough in that sense, but there was like one shining moment from Champs, which was, do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it the meeting we talked about last night?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that meeting a little bit? What you remember?
You can start us off.
Okay, so we had a match with 1717, and it was against 217. So it was like a really big match for both teams. And then 1717 was like one of the best teams in first, and they had this, their drive coach was like this really brilliant guy. He won the MacArthur Genius Grant. He was like well-renowned as one of the top mentors in first. And he pulled us all aside like it was in a limbs preparation. Like we went, how did you describe it? You were just like a whole
I was
nother.
saying yesterday that it's like he had this own little space that they'd carved out that was like, I don't even know where it was, but that they had kind of set up as like their space, that they were having these very thorough meetings for every single match. I looked last night when we were talking about this, and it was only our second match too, I think. So it was like really early on in the competition, and they were already just like had this established place that they would go bring people in this like process that was very thorough.
Yeah, and it felt like they just had a plan
Mm-hmm.
the entire competition going in. And I remember sitting down, and their coach was just like, he asked us, how are things going? What's been going well? What hasn't been going well? What are you guys best at? Really felt like we were part of the conversation, even though he was basically running the show. You know what I mean? Like whatever decision, it felt like whatever decision they made would be like, we'd go with. But we also felt like we were part of the conversation. He was asking like what we were good at, what we felt comfortable doing. We went through a bunch of contingencies, and I recall us walking away and turning to you and being like, that was incredible. I probably threw in a couple expletives too.
Yeah, I remember feeling that like this isn't something that we'd seen on a regional, like in teams we played with at regionals, and this is like how the big dogs play. Like,
yeah. And the funny thing is, as I've progressed through, different experiences with many teams, that still to this day is like the most impressed I've been with working with a team. I've had a lot of times where I was like looking forward to working with a team because I'm like, okay, what is their secret sauce? What is that thing that they're doing? And then it was just like, well, they're not doing anything that special. I think
that was kind of, I mean, I don't want to keep putting down 341, but just not feeling good after talking to Miss Daisy, who is also one of those like highly esteemed Hall of Fame teams. Like, I guess they were Hall of Fame after that year, but
they were definitely, they've been to Einstein before. They were one of those teams that you're like, okay, that's a powerhouse. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, and so coming off of that and feeling kind of disappointed with how it went to then comparing it to this, I think having those kind of in the same season too, with just seeing both sides of it, was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting, going to champs and talking to these different teams with the strategy kids. It's just a lot of fun. You get to kind of see where every team is at, what their different approach is. But that still to this day is the most impressed I've ever been. And I stole like 4 things from that meeting. Right? Like if it's a big match, we pull them to the side. When we talk with our alliance, I always ask, what's been going well? How's it going? What do you guys do best? What do you guys do worst? I always want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the strategy or it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I think one thing with us kind of being on the receiving end of that conversation, like not being the leaders of it, I think one thing that we felt, I mean, I don't remember exactly because this was only the second match and we don't have the footage, so I don't remember like what had happened.
I think we broke.
I
think we broke right away.
Yeah, so that's what I don't remember if we were functioning or not, but it is kind of what we were saying in New York about like, we know that this is what we can do when we're fully functioning and our highest potential. And it's kind of hard to evaluate ourselves impartially when people ask us what we want to, how's it been going? What can we do? What's going well? And I think that we also were not always super honest with ourselves, let alone other teams, and about trying to kind of, especially at champs where, it's not as much in our control to say we can be in the top 8. And so you're always trying to make sure that you stand out to be picked. And it's just like you want to show off.
And you want to be in positions where you can show your best stuff, right? You don't want to playing a secondary third role that you wouldn't play in a limbs because you're not showing anything there.
Right.
But
and so we would always kind of play ourselves up in that way. And even if, and then it was more disappointing than if we weren't working after that.
And I think the way he approached it, I don't know if we were like 100% super like on the level.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically this case, but just as a whole, like this competition.
Yeah, but I do remember that conversation. I felt comfortable being, 100% what was going on. And then when things didn't go well, it wasn't like a situation where they were upset at us because we told them like, haven't like had some breakdowns yesterday, have some issues with this. So if it happens, we had contingencies, and that's always better. So I tried to, from a strategy perspective, when you're having those conversations, try to get the team that we're talking to feel comfortable being honest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which isn't, always super easy, but is definitely something that I think, hopefully there's some scouts watching this. I think young scouts often struggle with that, like when they're pit scouting teams just lying to them flat out. So, it helps to have that approach. I like to always hear from, if they're talking to two kids, I like to hear from the kid who's not saying anything. Like I like to stare at that kid a little bit to see like what their reactions are to what the other person is saying. There's just like tricks to figure out what exactly is going on, because the more you know about what's actually happening, the better things are going to go. And you always want to make sure the team's on board with the strategy, or they're not going to execute it. They're just going to do their own thing.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I do remember in that situation with that mentor, for this specific case, feeling, partially because I felt like they were good enough that they would have control over the situation too, and so it wasn't as contingent on where we were. I did feel more comfortable being honest at that point. And yeah, I do think it's something to be able to put people in the mindset of we can speak openly, I think is something that's important for you, or for, just when you're on the other side of it. And that's something that, like you said, most teams did not make me feel that way.
Yeah, but I think, from a team perspective, teams prefer to work with teams that act that way. Honestly, I know that, Nicole just last year would be like, oh, we were talking about a team in a pick list. They're like, oh, they were really nice to work with. So like that always gives them a bump.
Or there have been times too where it's like we had a match with a team and they told us they could do something that they couldn't, and it sticks with us later. Like,
yeah, definitely. And it maybe it's not going to totally put you out of the running or in the running, but it is going to be a tiebreaker.
Right, and because at that point, obviously, we're watching all the matches, so we can see, and that's also why it's important to, watch every single match, and not just go off your one interaction with the team. But if, so we can see if that's something that you actually can do and you did do in other matches, or if you were just building yourself up.
Yeah. And
that reflects more negatively than just not being able to do it in the first place.
Yeah, and you definitely can, even with a good bot, swing yourself way out of a pick list by acting like a jerk. I have a really crazy thing that happened when we were in China 2 years ago, where basically going into the match, this team was saying that they could do things they couldn't, and I knew they couldn't, but they were kind of like refused to do it otherwise. So we did it their way, and it didn't work out. And then at the end of the match, the human player made a little mistake, and it didn't affect anything, but it was just like such a silly mistake that I was like, oh no, like it wasn't like real anger, it was just like, no. And then their coach started like cursing her out, and I was like, it's fine, it's totally fine, it doesn't matter, look, we won the match. I was like, whoa. And we were, after that match, like as a team, we're like, so we're definitely not going to pick them. And they had a sister team at the event, and that coach was involved with them too. And I remember we came over to that team. We're like, look, you guys are really good. We actually kind of like working with you. But we need to know if we pick you that coach isn't going to be involved at all. Like, you be careful. You don't want to be a jerk. You can get yourself off the pick list. But also, you just like don't yell at human players. Don't
Just
yell
don't
at
be
your
a jerk in general.
Don't
Yeah.
curse out your team. That was crazy. Okay. Cycling back to 2010 champs. So we had some trouble. Let's watch some matches. I'm not sure which one. There's only 2 matches from champs that we have video of. The Auton from distance from the back and actually worked pretty well. We cleared all 3 balls, which not a lot of teams could do. Even though we wouldn't always score them, it's still really good. I wish we shot straighter. That seemed to get worse as the season progressed. We would I think the kicker bent a little bit, so our shots wouldn't go straight.
Yeah, I do remember more of our issues mechanically being with the acquirer and ball control, like you're saying, but I think the kicker showed some wear down the line.
Yeah. God, I hate this old Blue Lines footage where they would just show the full field. If there was ever a game that lent itself to showing the full field, it was this one. So this is I don't know what happened to the robot. I think the intake wasn't working, but I think this is the match where no, never mind. This is a different match. This one's particularly bad, actually. Look over about. Oh God, that was terrible. Okay, this is gonna be really bad.
I also love in every single video that we've watched, in every video of New York, seeing Derek walking around.
Yeah. So this team's playing defense on us. And watch what we do. I don't know if it's right here or if it's later. Here we go. We give him a little push. And just, oh no, that's a red card. Yeah, that's still to this day, I think, the only red card I can ever remember us getting. And then we go to the wrong tower.
Maybe there's a little rust after missing a competition.
Yeah, I think Seth really had a hard time driving at champs because of rust, but also just this match was just, it was just everything was going wrong. Literally everything.
But also that was definitely not what happened at our tower. Doesn't feel very legal either. But
we pushed them into it. It looked so intentional. We had just tipped the team over. We'd gone to the other tower and tried to attach to it, and then we pushed the team into our tower. Everything we did looked super intentional. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but it looked super intentional. Match.
To me, it looked like an oh crap moment, spin around. Now there's someone else there, but I have to get there fast.
But that's just because you're on your side.
I'm biased. I'm so biased.
So right now we're in the back end and we're shooting from the far end. The auto was good.
Who's that filming?
I don't know. I think, you know who it might be? It might be Jake.
I was gonna say it looks like Jake.
Let's spend half the match focused on the drive team. So this. I think that if we hadn't broken, we definitely could have made a limbs at this competition, but we just broke so often. Also, if we didn't start freaking out and panicking and doing weird stuff. I guess it's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, but also every year that we went to champs and didn't get picked, I had felt like we should have.
But it always came down to breaking. So it
Yeah.
always comes down to. It's not about ability. It's not about how many things you can do. It was for us. It's always breakdowns that kill us.
I remember it's the same thing in 08. We're halfway through the match.
There's it's what are we doing? What are we doing here, guys? It's I don't care if the kicker doesn't work. I don't care if the intake doesn't work. It drives. Go do something.
What's funny is when I was watching the New York matches, and they're being taped from the stands, I would hear people yelling for them to go hang. Like, it was usually around 20 seconds, like around the end game time, but
No, it was like,
no, the
50.
chance, I mean.
Yeah, the chants were like 50 seconds into the match.
Yeah, but then the chants kept getting earlier and earlier too, because it was just the thing that we were best at and wanted to make sure that we showed, but it's not really helpful.
Yeah, so it's just like, and I think it's something young teams struggle with and young members struggle with. It's just like, take what you can get, right? It's always go for everything when you're designing. Try to do everything, score like crazy, bam, 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 climb at the last minute, and then when you get to it, you fail once, and you're like, okay, we have to climb at that, like before the match starts, we have to climb.
Yeah, that's the one priority we need to. Hey, it was the difference in this match, though.
And I think that, I think about the drive team that just was graduating. They were always like pushing like last second, as late as we can hang. I remember being like, we should go a little bit earlier to secure the ranking point here. And be like, but I want to go late. And it's just, like that's what I want the argument to be. When I'm being the conservative one, that's so I hope we get that in future drive teams as well, where they're aggressive.
I think that's also just kind of a mindset thing that has evolved since this time too, whereas like what you were saying earlier about aspiring to win a regional or aspiring to win the whole thing. And here it's like, are we just trying to get picked, or are we trying to like be the best and do the most? And
but oftentimes those two things go hand in hand, You have to score a lot of things to get to jump off the outing.
Yeah, but I mean here it's like we were already clearly in the mindset of show we can hang, show we can hang, show we can hang. And that's not actually the way to maximize the value.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if it was this year. I think it was this year, like towards the end, we were talking about taking Seth out as driver to get Adam practice for next year. And I was like, what is this attitude? This is our mindset. Like, we gotta push. Like, even if we come up short, we gotta know that we left it all on the field. Come on.
And also the way to make teams want to pick you too is, I mean, like what you're saying, they go hand in hand. The way to make them want to pick you is to show that you can be useful for a full 2 minutes before you go hang, and then still be able to hang. Like it's about maximizing your time and doing the most. Okay,
so that's it. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Sam?
No, but these pictures are just killing me.
Yep.
This is 10 years ago now.
Yep. Crazy. Also, this kills me. Everyone just wearing a different shirt. It's just like,
I know.
You want to show off your Donovan shirt?
Yeah, I pulled it out for the occasion.
Yeah, I think that's the ugliest shirt we've ever
had. I was gonna say it's your favorite.
Yeah, we used to have these things where we do a pattern just like in 2 inches going across all the way. It's like so ugly.
Well, this one didn't even have a robot though. Like I liked those ones, like the one that Adam's wearing, the 08 one there that has the robot, or the 09 one had the robot too.
Yeah. I like what we do now. We just have the standardized front, and then we do whatever this logo is on the back. Yeah,
I do too, and I think it's good for like cohesion and being able to recognize us in competition. But I will say, personally, I've stopped buying one every year because the front's the same, and I already have one.
That's fine. We're not really. I think we're taking a loss on shirts, so that's fine.
I mean, from a collection standpoint,
Oh yeah.
It doesn't feel as collectible.
Well, let me ask you this: if it was offered on the team website, would you buy it?
Sure.
Okay.
If that's a point you're trying to prove.
You hear that, new webmasters? Get it done. All right, Sam. Thanks for coming on. This was fun. Thanks for talking frankly about the issues we had, because I think that's something that a lot of students and mentors can learn from.
Yeah, look how far we've come.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much.
Thank you.